call to order for the regular White Bluff County Council meeting on Tuesday, Christmas month, December 5th, 2023. We start with a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have a roll call, please?
Scott Glover.
Here.
Brian Hill.
Here.
Debbie Merle. Here. Ronald McKay.
Present.
Tommy Lee. Here.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 7th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the November 7th meeting minutes.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's see. Public comment. The public comment, Mike McCardle.
Just about the financial stuff. Last week we approved, what, $15,000 for the park? And then, I don't care what it's for, just, the month before was $25,000 for the consultant. Yeah. So, in the last month we spent $40,000. And from what I understand, we still don't know where we're at with the budget. I'm just curious where the money's coming from. And to tell you the truth, when I got my degree in accounting, you always knew where you were with the budget. I mean, you should know every month where we're at, how much we spent, what we got left.
It's in their financial report every month. But what we were talking about is we won't know until about January, February if we're going to be over budget.
Or if we're going to be under budget.
Right.
And now we just spent $40,000 that wasn't in the budget. It just seems the money, when you guys want to do something, it's really easy to find it. When it's something you don't want to do, you sort of drag your feet. I mean, it just doesn't sound great sitting in the audience hearing it. So, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next, this would be applied to the public hearing. Consider a first reading rezoning of map 096 parcel 113.01. Janet?
Janet McCardle, 484 Diane in White Bluff. Some of you guys heard this at the Planning Commission meeting. I know that we talked over the work session on how changing this to R3 would set a precedent going forward. There was a discussion back and forth about that, which that's the first time we ever heard that. But what I'm concerned about is if we put in R3 there, then a future developer can come in and request an R3 PUD. Right now, our R3 is 8,000 square feet, which is 0.18 acre, less than a quarter of an acre, and an R3 PUD, which is the one at the back. We have a few, but in particular the one at the bank, some of those lots are 0.08. That's less than a tenth of an acre. I've asked some of you guys, you've approved this based on a concept, based on plans, based on site plans and projections. And I asked, now that it's built, do yourself a favor and drive through there. Don't drive by the back of it and say, look how close it is to the highway. actually drive in there. I feel it's your duty to do that. You are changing zoning, and now you have something that you can actually look at. And ask yourself if this is appropriate for a county town. I watched the county planning commission meetings where they turned down rezoning requests. One was from April 13th of this year. It was based on a legal decision they asked Andrew about. There's some things that he said, and I quote, "There are a lot of reasons for denial. There is broad discretion." He said community opposition can be taken into account. It's not the only basis, but you can consider it. And the last thing he said was no one has a right to be rezoned. I love this town. Michael and I come here. I know you all think we're a thorn in your side, in your sides, but we're not going to stop because we've lived this. We've seen what's coming. And we like our country town. A lot of people like it. I have people telling me all the time, "Janet, don't stop. Keep talking. Keep speaking out." So, and there's nothing in the South like the Northeast for you to compare to. So you really don't know what's coming. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You don't have to sign up for a public hearing, it's just a public comment. Anyone can come up, there's no limit.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Mike.
no, okay, Andrew, are you keeping anything else? Because I'm not. Okay, the next one, I think, is Ashley Smell. Am I saying that right, Ashley? Okay.
Thank you for hearing me out. My name is Ashley Smittle. I got to see some of you a couple of weeks ago. I'm kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Janet just said regarding the small country town. I grew up in Nashville, born and raised, and have seen firsthand just what's happening just down the road. And so I know that there is a fast-paced development all around us. But my husband and I chose White Bluff after looking on all sides of the city for what it is. And we have 4 little kids who we love to raise here. We love just the small town community aspect of it. And we sit on parcel, I had to write down 113.02, so we're the 6 acres just behind this area that's considering rezoning. And honestly, it's just strange to think that anything else could be put there besides what is already there. It's a very small space, 50 feet up to the road, and when you take into consideration what's left between where our property ends and where the next owner's driveway begins, it's not a lot of space to work with. Working from a highway, trying to enter into a small property that maybe would house, I don't know what we're talking about, but more than one home. I think it's a safety issue. I think it would be ugly. I think there's a lot of reasons why it's just not really fitting with the town that we get to preserve. And I feel really strongly to try to preserve it alongside those who want to do so. And I'm not saying development is not preserving it, but there is an aspect of it that's very charming. And so as I consider from my front porch and I look out and I try to envision it, I think there are some personal, I obviously have a bias, but there are some actual logistical concerns. The topography is a bit weird. So I did express some of that in the last meeting and invited people to come and have a look for themselves and just see what we're looking at and the different angles that we're talking about. But yeah, I think that overall, the town of White Bluff is just really special, and so I hope that we can keep the aspects of it that make it that way. So trying to see if there's anything else that I had. there was one other thing I wanted to add. The sign that's been placed along the road has twice been put on our property as opposed to the actual plot of land that's being considered rezoning, and I think that just shows how small it is. So I may have already said that, but I'll say it again. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
And Trevor Knight?
How's it going? Trevor Knight, 5067 Highway 70 East. My wife Melinda and I own parcel 112, which is the next door neighbor to the property in question. I want to note we have no qualms with the owner of the property personally. They're trying to get a return on their investment. Totally understand that. We just think it's not a prudent decision for the future development of the area, and it doesn't seem appropriate. I want to focus on the purpose and intent of what the R3 zoning designation is supposed to be as written in the zoning ordinance, which is, quote, "This district is designed to provide more flexibility in development design and to ensure a minimum standard of site development for activities located near the Highway 70 and Highway 47 intersection and within proximity to the historic downtown of White Bluff. This area of town is more conducive to areas for high-density residential development due to less topographically challenged areas, pedestrian accessibility to local places of interest." End quote. So I feel that this vision of what R3 can and should be is clearly not applicable to this parcel. This parcel lies 2.5 miles from the intersection mentioned above, and that would be the farthest for any R3 zoning this town has ever allowed. The lot is abutted by R1 properties on all sides, has no pedestrian access to anywhere, and there's a sharp curve of Highway 70 just off the edge of the map you've been given, and this area is already a traffic hazard. Cars get pulled over right in front of this property all the time. I see it out of my front window. Introducing potentially 8 units, 15 more cars, which enter and exit right onto the highway at this location, doesn't seem very prudent. As other people have mentioned, public opposition, we're well aware, can't be the only reason that you make a decision, but it can certainly be considered, and the families who come in daily contact with this proposed development chose those properties exactly because they were not high density. And having a home directly next to townhomes, in the case of Ashley's family directly behind townhomes, could hurt the value of their property. You're allowed to consider what the maximum use of this property is, as well as any real facts such as the topography, like Ashley mentioned, or traffic conditions, and those facts do not bode well for putting a development on this plot. Finally, I want to urge you to consider the zoning ordinance as a whole, which has some explicitly expressed purposes, which are, in summary, enhancing character and stability, promoting orderly and beneficial development, preventing overcrowding, conserving land and building value, minimizing traffic, fire and flood hazards, preventing undue concentration, providing adequate sanitation and privacy, assisting in the provision of services, encouraging the most appropriate use of land, and enhancing the amenities of White Bluff. That's all of them. I didn't leave any out. I think you can make a strong argument that rezoning this parcel to R3 meets none of these standards, and perhaps even goes directly against nearly all of them. So if this change is approved, as others have mentioned, I think it sets a really dangerous precedent. Once rezoned, in all likelihood, it won't be rezoned back down. And if this lot, which is abutted by R1, and rests almost 3 miles from downtown White Bluff, can be rezoned to R3, are there any parcels anywhere near Highway 70 that cannot? And do we really want all the land near the highway to eventually be townhomes? Because that would be the course we're charting here. So, as neighbors and residents, we're sharing our perspectives with you. Humbly ask you to consider them. Thanks for your service and your time.
Thank you. We are, okay, this is new for me. Remember the public hearing. This was it, right?
No, those are public comments.
Okay, so public hearing, we still have, okay.
They don't
Change
have
the
to-
whole format. You don't have to sign up for public hearing. It used to not be that way, so we're just, from the state, we've had to change everything around. So, just bear with me. We will close the council meeting. We'll open up a public hearing before final reading of an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance Article 3, Section 3.090, access control by adopting traffic impact guides by reference. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
Okay. Well, given the opportunity.
Yes, I've been.
Don't worry, I never turn down a chance to speak.
Go for it.
Please. Please.
First of all, your name
sorry.
and address.
Rob Weigener, 1205 White Bluff Road, in White Bluff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Please. If you don't think this is necessary, you haven't driven through Spring Hill, right? This makes sense. I mean, and I spoke about this last month. Traffic studies, what a great start. Let's think about our emergency services, our first responders, because they're behind the 8 ball here as we increase.
You have to stick with what we're just talking right now about the traffic.
Okay,
thing.
okay. Apologies. Please, yes, please, please. I'm a big fan of this.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? That public hearing meeting is over. Public hearing before the final reading of an ordinance to amend the White Bluff Municipal Zoning Ordinance, Article 3, Section 3.22 of landscaping and screening requirements by deleting and replacing in its entirety. Does anyone want to speak? Okay. Okay, now back to the council meeting. Open the council meeting again. Communication from the mayor, Christmas festivities. Saturday's a big day, and of course, as you all know, the weather always cooperates with us when it's our day to have our Christmas festivities and parade. The weather says bingo. It's either going to be raining, hail, ice, snow, or something. I mean, that's just, we don't even have to watch the weather report. That's just the way it's going to be. So, we do have a chance of rain. Hopefully not. It can be, for somebody said one time it's 40% now, 80%, but it won't be until that night. We will go right on with this. I mean, at this point in time, you can't reschedule something. I mean, you've only got like 2 more weekends or something before Christmas. You just have to have it and you're done. So we will have Breakfast with Santa. That's been going on for years. That's at the community center. So the weather has nothing to do with that. It's always a big thing. It's usually a sellout. Hours of what, Connie? Do you know, 7 to 11? 7 to
It's
8 till 11.
8 till 11? Okay. What about the pictures, Johnny? Do they make their own snapshots?
Pictures with Santa Claus, yeah.
Okay. Okay, excuse me.
Heard we had a great Santa this year.
We have Jenny's, we have a Christmas, I call it a Christmas Bazaar. It's a fundraiser for the library. There's 30 vendors and 1 or 2 food trucks. It's Jenny's Mercantile, and it will be out at the Civic Center. And I'm just going to say they're going to be there and set up by 9 o'clock. So, and they will close down about 3:30 for the parade. The parade starts, it's an electric parade. If you've never been to one of our parades, they're beautiful. I mean, and really, I would say the parade and the July 4th is probably the biggest things, the biggest crowd getters. I mean, it's, people line up for sometime an hour ahead of time. But the parade theme this year is Hoodville Christmas. I've already heard, I've already seen pictures of maybe some of the floats. It's going to be awesome. And it's electric. It's 4:30. The parade route starts at right up here where you turn to go into the school. The middle school, it comes down through and goes down to McDonald's, goes right, and then comes back up on Charlotte Road. So we've got bands coming. I mean, it's going to be nice, so I encourage you, if you can, to bring the kids out and come and see that. Brenda McClellan, who I don't know if all of you know or not, she has Granny's Kitchen. Brenda is she about 90, I think? Brenda has always had a restaurant or something somewhere. Brenda is our grand marshal this year, and we have had more positive comments and feedback. People like her. She just is always doing, sometimes she will send out 15 or 20 meals a day to shut-ins. So she very deserved, she's thrilled about this, her family's thrilled. We will do a little interview with her tomorrow, and we'll have it on our Town of White Bluff page. So we're thrilled to have Brenda. Council representative, as you know, we're studying the comprehensive plan to decide how we're making it to fit our needs, to make it for White Bluff. And Jeff and Amanda Harrington is working with Carl Kincaid from the council and from Debbie Brewer with the Planning Commission to put together some of the things that have been noted and been talked about, and to bring back maybe a plan for the council to review. So I don't know when y'all starting on that, Jeff. When should? First of the year. Okay. You have in your package the October financial statement.
The revenues, expenditures are going out, coming in and going out, as predicted. If you can, we got the budget estimates, the actual and the percentage of the budget, and right now everything's looking, it's normal.
Normal, okay,
Mhm.
okay. Not knowing, I've got to respond to something, I think, not knowing exactly when we say we don't know where we are, no, that's not what we're saying.
No.
We're saying that we don't have enough history. This is not, hadn't got anything to do with somebody's accounting knowledge or capability. We don't have enough history. There are things that do not happen to our town, things we don't pay, revenues we don't get in until maybe January, February, or March. That's when you have a better snapshot of how things are going. Of course, you can look right now and see, everything looks normal now, but when your big revenues and your big expenses start coming in, you've got a pretty good snapshot. Usually it's about February, March where you get a real good. That's then when we have to start working on next year's budget, and that's what we have to go back and look at. And then things still happen after, in April, May, June. It's a budget. But so if any of you have any questions, Melody's here to answer, or you can call her or text her. She might not be able to just answer without looking at notes or something, but. Okay, next, acknowledge receipt of Town of White Bluff annual audit report. We talked about this at the work session. So has anybody called? Anybody have any more questions or?
Yeah, and the audit is what it is. I just need a motion that y'all got.
That you got the audit, okay.
It doesn't have to be approved, it just has, I like to have a motion.
Okay.
Motion of receipt.
I make a motion that we received it.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Going on down to codes and permits. Second and final reading on ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance, Article 3, Section 3.090, access control by adopting traffic impact guides by reference. Does anybody have any new information since our work session? Do you, Brian?
After the work session, and this is, you guys can do what you want to do with this. So I never made the phone call because I got thinking about what Scott said. And I'm not 100% sure, that's where I'm going to need you guys to weigh in, like, if this is going to matter. But I thought about it, and I thought, one good example would be the city park that Mr. Bibb donated to us. If that were going to be rezoned for a development, then it would be over the 10 acres, But I do wonder, on the smaller tracts, like Scott was saying, what if it didn't make the 10 acre threshold? What if it was 9 acres? If 9 acres were right there where that 50 acres said, we didn't do the traffic assessment, then I could see where that would be an issue because of the school traffic. And so I do think, I guess where I'm getting at is, like, for example, 9 acres in the county being rezoned wouldn't have near the traffic impact that 9 acres would in our city. So I can see where he's coming from about maybe going to 5 with everything, simply because the traffic is going to be increased merely by it being in the city, whereas the county, you wouldn't have that issue. So I'm not necessarily opposed to going to 5 acres on both if that's something you guys want to do. I do think it would get caught in the second, like when you presented your plan, you would have to get the traffic study at that point. But if we had a 9 acre tract in the city, technically we could get it could get rezoned with no traffic impact at all. So I see where Scott's going with that. So
Brian, would you like to make that motion?
Scott, is that was your idea? You want to make that motion?
I need a motion, yes, I need a motion before we can go any further with this.
You want to do
A
that?
motion for an amendment first,
Yes.
and then we'll take up
Yes.
the full. And if I may just briefly, I went after the comments from Councilman Glover, I figured let's go look at some other jurisdictions in the area. No one does this, so there's not a ton of guidance, and so we're kind of going to be out on our own, and y'all have full discretion on when you want to see a traffic assessment. Just keep in mind, it was designed to give you information when something's either being annexed or rezoned, and it's upzoned. So if you're going, we debated this a little bit, if you're going from R1 to C1 or C1 to R1, we're not going to require it for that. It's upzoning to a higher intensity of use, so you could limit it to certain classifications if you wanted. That could get a little clunky, but obviously this body has the ability to change that. Again, we would have to take it back to the Planning Commission, but they're meeting next Tuesday, and it would come back to you in January.
We did say there's nothing that's going to be affected if we do send this back that we know of that's going to require, you know what I'm saying, like
Anything in the pipeline?
What's that?
Anything in the pipeline?
Right.
Yeah, nothing I'm aware of, and also if anything were in the pipeline right now, this would not apply to it.
Okay.
It would have, this has to go into effect, and then anything that comes in after it will be subject to it.
Scott, would you like to make that motion for
I
an
would,
amendment?
yes. How do I verbalize this, council?
Make a motion to amend the requirements in the traffic impact study guidelines under section 1 to require a traffic assessment for parcels 5 acres or more across the board.
Yes. So I'm going to make the change for the traffic assessment study, section 1, subsection A, to go to 5 acres instead of 10 acres.
Okay.
You have a motion there.
I'll second it.
There you go.
I was waiting for you for that one.
Hey, man, y'all, but I do think this is probably a reasonable move.
If it doesn't work out, we can always change it back.
Yeah.
And this goes back to planning, before it can be actually,
Yeah, we'll take it to planning, we'll update the language,
Yeah.
they'll make a recommendation, they'll come back to you.
okay. So all in favor of the amending this section from 10 to 5? Aye. Everybody? Okay. So it goes back to planning, and we'll come back to the council. The way the government works. Okay, moving on down, consider on second final reading an ordinance to amend the White Bluff Municipal Zoning Ordinance, Article 3, Section 3.220, landscaping and screening requirements by deleting and replacing in its entirety. Passed on first reading. Does anybody have anything new to say on it? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And Mayor, I'll just note for the council, you know, there's still that section XYZ throughout, that will be updated, we're just waiting for you to pass it. So.
Consider on first reading rezoning of map 096, parcel 37.07, 1228 Taylortown Road from R1 low density residential to R3 medium density residential. We discussed this pretty at length. So does anybody have anything you want? Any information? Do I have a motion to approve on first reading?
I'll make a motion to approve on first reading.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who is that?
That's me.
You? Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
Okay. Are we at the point where we don't have to give a reason? Okay. Hold on, we're doing things. Okay. That's the first reading. There will be a second reading in January and a public comment, public hearing. Consider on first reading rezoning of map 096, parcel 113.01, Highway 70 East from R1 low density to R3 high density. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to reject this based on concerns of the topography as well as the fact it doesn't fit the area.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. To reject?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. So unanimous, right, everybody? Okay. So that's off the books. All right, building permit reports. You have that in your package. Jeff, I'm turning that over to you.
There was a whole one building permit issued in the month of November.
You go, Jeff.
Do we know the details?
412 East Side Drive, residential.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, because I live near that, and
You could build a building or anything.
That square footage is not correct, because it's going to be like the existing houses to the west of it, and those are not the same.
We have to get with Roy on that.
Yeah.
So what are we saying? We can move on.
We're gonna have to, this is wrong, we're gonna have to have Roy. Put it in the
Okay,
system.
Let's put a building permit down there. Public safety, police department report, that would be our chief.
There's the man.
Slow month, actually. Slower than normal. We had 235 calls for service. Out of that, 53 were traffic stops. We only issued 25 citations, 28 warnings, 11 arrests, 1 DUI, and 3 narcotics. We do have our K9, drug K9 that is up and going. Brent Allen is handling her, so we're hoping to see some good turnout from her. She was donated by a couple of the businessmen in the city.
That's awesome.
Well, the money to buy her was anyway.
What was the officer's name?
The K9 or the officer?
Okay, now.
K9. It is actually Black Betty, is what she was named on her paperwork. We were calling her Betty.
Was it
Black, little black lab. Yes, sir.
Always hungry.
I don't know. I haven't messed with her much. I leave that to Brent, so.
I did have, just so you guys are aware, I did have a citizen come to me the other day and said, there was a young, not a young man, but a man at the Dollar General, so middle of the city, with a baseball-sized thing of meth, is what they assumed it to be. And so I did forward that to one of the deputies, and so hopefully Betty will help us with that, because that, he was bragging that he had it, so I'm thinking, well, then we'll show our appreciation for that. So it is here, definitely.
Absolutely. We have everything here. We're seeing, everything fentanyl on down, so it's just a matter of finding it.
You have to Narcan every once in a while, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I think we Narcan one passed on, but I'm not sure. That's slowed down too, thankfully.
You have any more babies?
Only one. Give you guess where it was at.
Are there a lot of safety procedures you have to take when you're dealing with fentanyl?
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the things that we're worried about with K-9, is her getting into a vehicle, or the officer getting into a vehicle with it. That's where it rolls into, it can be dangerous, him running a dog on the vehicle by himself. If the dog or he were to get into it and go down, we don't know that the bad guy would Narcan him. We're going to bet that they would not. Preferably, we always would like to have a second officer there, but that's, just not always feasible.
Can you Narcan a dog?
Again.
We have that.
Yes, sir, we have Narcan, yes, sir.
Well, I know about the dog, I didn't know if there was different applications.
We donated to the toy drive this year instead of doing the packing for the sheriff's department handle that. They much better staff than I actually got to speak to the sheriff, and I told him, I was like, we count on you guys to be our second officer on duty, and I said, I just want to know, what's your opinion of that? He said, well, we're always willing to come. We'll help you guys anytime. He said, but if I'm over there on the county line, I don't know that I'm going to be able to help you guys much. He said, I recommend that you do it in-house. He said, because we can't always be there. And so...
And it's better with the new administration. They have opened up more positions. I do see more officers around, but, when they're running 3 or 4 per county, that's not many for the size of Dixon County.
Yeah.
If we're fortunate, they'll have 6 on and one will be hanging around White Bluff.
Right.
Other than that, Burns, they usually only work day shift. Dixon City will come, but, it would have to be an emergency.
Dire straits, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any special modifications had to be made to the vehicle?
For K-9? Yes, sir. We actually, part of the grant that we received by the new vehicle, we also put in $5,000 to modify the 2017 to put a cage in it, suitable for that would haul the K-9 as well as one prisoner. It did cost us about $7,500, but I still believe we'll be okay money-wise. I may have to come back to y'all begging a little later on, but right now I believe we're okay on our budget. So.
I like the fact that we have K-9 on our.
Yes, sir. Yeah, she's a sniffer only. She won't bite. We didn't want that liability on us. So.
Awesome. Okay, any more questions, or just thank you?
Thank you for all your
Fire department report.
Good evening. You didn't. Thank you. We had 73 calls last month. 42 of them were inside the city, 24 were outside the city, 7 of them were mutual aid system departments that we consider a rural area. With 2 public assists inside the city, 36 medical calls, 1 false alarm, and 3 brush fires inside the city. Outside the city with 17 medical calls, and 1 motor vehicle crash, 3 investigations, 2 brush fires, and 1 structure fire that ended up, I think it ended up actually being a false call. We had one out to the mutual aids for one for a medical call, one for an investigation, 4 for brush fires, and 1 for a debris fire. And we ran 739 calls today.
When you get the dog.
Do what? We use Betty.
There you go.
She was sweet. I've met her. She's a great dog. I think my pet raccoon can cook her day. She's a good dog, man. I watched off traveling with her at fire department. Really cool to watch.
Okay, thank you.
And that's Saturday.
Yeah, see, Saturday. Court report.
Mayor report, heard 25 cases in November, 7 criminal, 18 traffic.
Streets and sidewalks, I don't have anything to report tonight except if I go out and run around, I'll show a couple, we can start this. I go out and run around, do see potholes here and there, and we are asking the street, I called Jeff immediately, and we asked the street department to go and patch them the best they can, but it's not going to, it won't be with hot mix, because the hot mix plants have closed down. So bear with us, and when they are repaired, and we're gonna have this snow, this ice, this rain, we're gonna have them all over, we're gonna have those all winter. And we will just try and stay on top of them the best we can. So if you have a big gully washer and pothole concern in your house or something, I don't ride all the roads, and neither does Jeff or anybody else, so please call and let us know. And then we will send the street department out there to check on it. Next, Parks and Recreation, consider the repair estimate for the Field of Dreams Playground. I think we talked about this at length last Thursday. We have okayed, it's around approximately $15,000 to bring our playground back up to even par. If not, for safety reasons, with insurance, it's either do that, or we're gonna have to probably just close it down for a while, till we can. So, I've authorized the $15,000. So that starts when, Johnny, next week?
Yeah, he's running, he's a week behind, he starts Monday.
Okay, okay. So, any old business?
Only thing I would make a suggestion of, which y'all are probably already on the A game about the park, would be to make large posts everywhere, because otherwise, poor folks up at Town Hall, I'm sure, are going to get some phone calls while mamas can't get in there with their kids.
Okay.
So, just try to prevent some complaints.
There's your man back there. There's your man back there, so he'll work with the contractor and make sure that everything is supposed to be like it's supposed to be. They work on those things all the time. Okay, any old business?
I do have another question about the Field of Dreams, because I was not here. Was there any discussion about going ahead and starting plans to replace the current playground, long-term plans for it in the future? Because we discussed how this will bring it up to where it's acceptable for use right now, but the remaining portion, it's going to have to be replaced in the future.
I want to piggyback off her comment, so I guess we can go into new business. Is that good with you? Cause it's probably
Go into new business, fine.
Okay, so with what she's saying, I would like to know, I want to put this on the next agenda, I would like to know what our options are as far as budgeting a parks fund, not necessarily having things that you want to do, but just a parks fund that we put money into every single budget, or what she's talking about when we get ready to do something of that magnitude. I also would like to see that on emergency services, to where we just put money into a budget that doesn't have anything to do with what he's asking or the fire department's asking for, but it's just going into the emergency services budget in case that we do come across something we need, that the money is, because the problem's gonna be, when you get this 50-acre park, and like she's saying, what's fixing to happen with Field of Dreams eventually, trying to come up with that kind of money just off the rip, especially when nobody wants to raise taxes, is impossible. So if we're putting money in a fund every single budget, then eventually we're going to be there. And I know nobody wants to, but at some point, all three of those things, in my opinion, we're going to have to start planning for what's ahead, because if we try to wait, it's gonna overwhelm us. Even the care for that 50-acre park is gonna be, without donations, we can't do it at our present status. So, I'd like to put on budget, let us talk about what's legal, what we can do.
We talked about that with the 911 stuff that's coming in the radios and all that.
Right.
We talked about doing that.
And anything, even the dog's a good example. If we had that money going to that budget for the past 5 years, we would just bought the dog, or just repair, the $15,000 would have been there. Because in my opinion, if we keep going off what they ask for, then we're only gonna pay for what we absolutely can afford, and everything else is just, so.
That's a good topic. It is a good topic. But remember, when you're doing the budget, you're doing it year to year.
Right.
You're doing it from July 1st to June 30th. You're looking at what you project your revenues to come in and what you project your expenses. So, first of all, that's got to work out.
Right.
And if at the end of the year or at the end of that budget, you don't have any extra money left, that's what I'm saying. Would that be a part of the budget where you said, hey, this is a requirement, it's going to go in, we're going to, one way or the other, we've got to raise it, we got to do something?
That's what I'd like to see, yes. I would like to say, okay, you got a parks fund and an emergency services fund that have to be budgeted at this percentage every single year, irregardless. And if we don't have the money, taxes. It is, we're going to have to do it. I know nobody wants to hear it, I get that, but,
That's just what I want to make sure anybody
and I
understands when
absolutely do, and I think
you start because right now, if we have anything left over, it's going into general fund balance, which general fund balance is to be used, I guess, for certain things, and we can take out a general fund balance, but you don't want to take out a general fund balance, in my opinion, and what we've been told, to do daily operating expenses. That's not even good at accounting, but so if we want to start having a line item and having this building, then you've got to figure out where's that extra money going to come from.
This is what I've discovered. Okay, so if you say, let's just say that.
And I'm for this, Brian. Don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing, but we got to understand that's where it's got to come. Where are we going to get that?
I don't like the general fund because if I say I want to add an officer, the answer is going to be no, because it's not for a reoccurring debt.
Yeah.
But if we set these funds and we say, okay, we're going to pass this and this much percentage, whatever, has to go in there every single year, then the money will be found. I've seen that. If it's in that budget, we'll pay for it. And if that means taxes or if that means, cutting somewhere else, then that's what we'll have to do to make that happen. But I just feel like, what good, and using what she said too, parts, what good's having all that if you can't maintain it? And, right now we've probably got a pretty good donation hub. But what if that runs out, and that's, and I look right now and it's like every year I come to you guys and I'm like, okay, this is what I'd like to see, but every year the money's not there.
Yeah.
We gotta find a way to fix that, because it's something at time, and if y'all got better ideas, I encourage you to, but I feel like, putting our irons to the fire and saying this is what we will budget every single year, irregardless.
And I will add to that, let's talk about the parks. How many of you were here when Field of Dreams was built?
I was here.
You were there. Stephanie, you were.
I wasn't on council, but I was here.
Connie? I don't know how many I saw. Johnny Reed? How many of you? Field of Dreams was not built with city money.
True.
So the city's never built it to begin with.
Right.
It was built by all volunteer, by donations, by fundraisers. I think we all remember that. I gave the story the other day, and it's true. I can remember older retired men, like my daddy, Harville Mott. I would have never thought you'd see Harville Mott. But coming up with tools and working on this, and it cost the city nothing. We gave the land. So you're starting out with a zero. Now to replace it, not saying that won't have to be done someday. I think, I don't know, the Caboose Park in Bellevue, I don't know how they've done that, have they replaced it? It's just always been there, and they keep adding on to it, building, and just keeping up what they've got. To replace it, guys, if you're talking today, if you went to replace that, I swear to you, it'd be at least $250,000. Okay. So by the time we start this, and I know everybody's going to say, the mayor doesn't want to do this, mayor. No, this is not true. I'm just trying to bring reality. By the time we start this fund, to get up to $250,000, and then when we do, then that, at that time, 10 years from now or whatever, it's gonna cost $750,000. You're always trying to play catch-up. So it's very good. I like the idea. We've had this idea come up before. Somebody before, 8 or 9 years ago, on another council wanted to do this. They wanted to start for capital projects, is what they wanted. We have been very fortunate. I mean, this park we're getting out here, what we got at Civic Center, what we've got out here, Veterans Park. Now, the city did buy the property, didn't they, for Veterans Park, but to build it, it went by grants and volunteers. No, that's everything we've got, y'all, has been through wonderful people that we've got here that will give us land, give us property. And so somebody said, okay, we have to, from time to time, even when we get this, we have to put up matching money a lot of times for grants. It doesn't come just thrown over to you. I mean, I know I hear this, I've heard it for 20 years, grants, and it's great. And we are very lucky and we've got a lot of grants. But if we don't have money to put up to match it, it does us no good. The grant just goes down the road, somebody else gets it. So far, we've had land that would match it. Somebody would say, I'm giving the land, see what that appraises for, that stands for the grant, you know. So I want to do this, but I can tell you right now, it's hard.
It's going to be hard.
And to do this, what you're wanting to do, we're either going to have terrific increase in sales taxes, we're going to have to raise property taxes every 2 years as you raise.
And I believe that should happen, as much as people don't want to hear that, I do.
I mean, I agree. We talked about this with the 911 stuff on the radios, because at the time, I was with you on that exact similar suggestion of earmarking those funds, and not just earmarking those funds on a line item, but then also putting them in a fund that would give us a positive growth and interest. So that way we're able to keep up and have funds to match grants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And instead, the answer at the time was, no, we'd rather wait and take out a loan because we get great rates on negative interest. And I'm going, why not be on the positive leverage instead of the negative leverage?
Well, and I think too, with what you're saying, you know, again, it's you know, even if we've got a strong general fund, or you can get a loan, that doesn't help me with a yearly expense like a cop, a fireman, or what we're going to have, which is park maintenance. We're going to have them. Somebody's got to mow, somebody's got to maintain the building, somebody's got to be security. I mean, all that's going to have to come. That's 50 acres. You can't expect our guys to. So, you know, and I agree with you. If we could get that earmarked, it's going to be painful.
I have to jump in here. I'm probably the one that said that, because listen, we've got to pay for that equipment within another year or so. We're not going to save enough money to pay for that equipment, and that's when I said we have to do capital projects sometimes to get what our town has to have as dictated by the state, not us.
There will be another capital project after that.
Okay, so we're going to get what we need though right now. We're operating on today. We're probably going to have to do a capital project unless we all just know someone that's got $500,000 that will hand it to us. Now, if we do, that takes care of the problem, but we don't. So we're going to have to do, and I said that's the best way to go because you do get a very good low interest rate. Municipalities do on something like that. Then I also said, and I'll say it again, you can get ready for it. Probably at the end of 7 years, guess what? State or somebody's going to change all the rules of the game again. We're going to look at it again. So we've got to make the payment for it now. Plus, then it's a great idea if we could come up with enough extra money to do it, to get ready for it. But you're talking, you don't want a budget.
I do.
Okay.
Are y'all still talking about Field of Dreams? What are you talking about now?
We're talking about everything. Field of Dreams budget, everything. Yeah.
Kind of piled up there for a while.
I agree.
wrapped in that package.
And I agree, and I understand things happen where we just got to pull triggers, and thank God we've got some good loans that are available to us. All I'm saying is that if we can have these line items to where we're getting a 4% positive return in our favor, and we can at least help the blow there with those line items and have them already earmarked for whenever we say, hey, we need this, you know, so like I said, same with the park, same as with the the emergency funds. That's a whole lot better than just waiting and then getting a loan for a negative 2% interest rate. I mean, I'd rather be sitting in the positive 4 than, I'm just being facetious on rates, but I'm just saying.
I think it's great. I think that's great. You just gotta figure out, guys, this is a budget. You're going to put it in.
Right.
You're going to put it in, just like you're putting in an expense. That's what it is.
That's what it'll be.
All I'm saying is, when we get ready to do this, if you're gonna put that in, and it is a requirement, and it's an expense, for us to have to use later or something, and remember, the way accounting budgets work, CMFO over there, at the end of the year, what is left in that line item that we're gonna be putting in there, where does it go? Goes into general budget.
Well, and I'm hopeful, and this is something that I'm gonna give you homework, because I don't know the legalities of what I'm trying to say. But, let's just say that every year in your budget, you're gonna put, $10,000 into the Parks Fund. All right, so I'm not gonna let that go into general fund if I can help it. Whatever we're gonna do with that $10,000, we're gonna spend every single year. But what that does do is that allots that in that budget before anybody asks for anything, it's there. So, and that's my problem right now, because I want to see, I've got 10 months left before I get out of here if I don't get reelected. What I want to see is something to stop this cycle of every time I ask for, it's not your fault or our fault or anybody's fault, but if I ask for a police officer, I ask for a fireman, there's never any money. Something's got to happen to where that doesn't continue for year after year after year.
What do you think's gotta happen, Brian?
Well, what I think needs to happen, because I've only got 10 months left, I think we either put something in there for emergency services and a parks fund, or we budget for the things that we actually feel that we're going to need with parks and emergency services, and we pay for it, whatever that means. If that means taxes, fine. My property taxes this year, of course it's county and city both, between my company and me, was $17,000. I don't care. If it has to go up to get the services and the people we need, then so be it. That's just the way I see it. So.
Well, I'm listening to both of you.
Right.
And I see exactly, I know what you're trying to say, what you're trying to do. But I'm just saying, when you're doing a municipality budget, whatever you put in those line items as an expense, which is it, you've got to have the revenues coming in that year to match that.
Right.
And so this year, we're gonna be watching it close to see if the revenues and I hope to goodness we do. I'm hoping that the dollar store out here, but they can only do so much. But we gotta see, first of all, we won't know until later in the year if the revenues we didn't got coming up will match the expenses that have to be paid. So that's my only point. I agree with this. But you've got to think that if we're gonna go this route, in fact, we're gonna establish a savings account, what we're gonna do. That's basically, if you want to put it in house accounts, where are we gonna get the money to put in savings? I can't get it, my household account, by the time I get through paying our bills, we have any money put in savings. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, if you look back, Carl, you remember we voted on the property tax increase, all right? So I went with council because I wanted us to be united. I don't like that plan. I really think we should have raised taxes, and I think we should continue to raise taxes until we are at a point to where we can...
Have things we need.
Yes. So, but I will give you guys credit, because if this works, with what y'all said, and the money ends up being there, I'm not opposed to not raising taxes. If the money ends up being there from sales tax, from all this growth, they start paying property taxes. If it comes about that way, then I would love not to raise. I don't want to raise property tax either, because, it's eating my lunch. That's a huge amount of money that we pay out every year. Now, granted, the county takes most of it, but nevertheless, so if what I heard when we voted on that property tax and it got voted down, if that works, I'm all for that. That's great. If we can get what we need through the increased growth, then that's a win. If we can't,
I also think it's a different conversation, though, too, to have when you're saying, hey, we're foreseeing these problems, that we're coming up short every single year, to say, hey, we are, theoretically, we are going to increase taxes a little bit in order to fund a positive growth savings account to pay for these things that are upcoming that we need. That's a different conversation than saying, hey, we're going to raise taxes because please take no offense to nobody who would, because we didn't see this coming, we don't have the money for it, now we've got to take out a loan to pay for it, so we're raising taxes. that's two very different approaches. And I would be more inclined to say, hey, if we know these things are coming in the next 7 years and 10 years, I would be more inclined to be on that boat to prepare for it as opposed to be reactive. I'm proactive than reactive.
Well, let me ask you a question. We would like to give, I would love to give our police department one more police officer, maybe two.
Right.
And that's what we all want. I mean, I think we all will agree with that maybe we need that. And with that comes cars,
True.
more gas, it comes more police equipment, all that. So when we so if we put this in this line, we need that now.
We do need that now.
Okay, so then, now, if you're gonna use that money, that's exactly what we do every year, y'all. In our budget, we ask, what do you want, what do you need? We look at it, okay, but here's what we got coming in, tell us let's look and see what we can put off another year, something you're not just in dire straits, but we got it coming, okay. So, I guess my thing is, the extra money that you're talking about, we need that now.
We do need that now, and
We don't, so you're gonna have that now, what comes in we might have now, but then we're gonna ask for more to put in for future things? I mean, if you think
Well,
about,
I do feel like, this is where, I would say to people that are for slower growth,
yeah,
and me agree. I do feel like, you got all these townhomes coming, right?
yeah,
And they may not be occupied yet, but they're gonna be.
yeah.
How many more calls will come in, fire or police, from those? And what's gonna happen is they're all gonna get occupied, and we're still not gonna have the money. And that's what I'm saying, like, I don't really have the answer, but we better figure it out, because in a year from now, if we're at the same position that we are now, we are going to be behind. And so, because when all those get occupied, we don't have the staff to handle it right now, in my opinion. That's just, I just see a problem, and this is, like I've always told you guys, if he's gonna do it by himself, and he's over there in that village of townhomes, and somebody's kicking in my door, who's coming? And the answer is nobody. And that's a hard, honest truth. And we have got to figure out a way to make sure that...
To increase our staff.
Yes.
That's what you're basically saying, to increase the staff. And I agree. But also, I also agree that we have to, I say it till I get sick of it, but your budget dictates your service.
It does.
Whatever budget that we are handed to run this town and to manage this town, that's the service that we give back.
I agree, and that's
So
a
that's
hard question.
It is hard.
And that's why, Andrew, if you tell us what we can do, if you don't mind, as far as savings account and interest and, funds. I don't want, the last thing I want to do is start stacking money in an emergency services fund and then go right back in general fund, because that's not helping anybody. And so, same thing with parks. I don't want to save money up for the parks to do things in the future and then that money go in general fund, because now I can't use it as a yearly line item. It's going to either be one thing or nothing. And that's not what we need. And so, and I do think it's going to get a little rocky, because money's going to have to come from somewhere, And I do think it'll eventually come from the growth between sales tax and new businesses and the new townhomes and all that stuff. But can we bridge that gap without falling into a pit?
Exactly.
And that's, and if we can.
And the growth, people will say, well, you've got all this growth, so you should have a lot of money. Sometimes from that growth, those taxes, we might not get. Sometimes that we stay like, a year behind before we really realize the property taxes.
And the question's going to be how much comes in from all that. We don't know, and that's the scary part. We don't know. And somebody asked me today, why won't they widen 70? I said, it's not our decision. It's the state's, and they're not going to do it before. They're going to do it after, when everything's so congested you can't move. I would rather we not do that. I would rather we act proactively if we can.
Right.
So you guys brainstorm. Tell me why this isn't going to work when we come back.
No, I think, I know exactly where you're coming from. We've talked about this before in past years. But like I say, I'll go back to budget. When you're budgeting from July 1st through June 30th, any town will tell you this, any municipality, county, this is the way it is.
Right.
You have to look, and you budget just for that 12 months, and you got to pay your bills on what you've got coming in those 12 months. I mean, that's just the CMFO thing,
Right.
But, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. It's tough. That's what people think it is. Trying to keep the taxes down, but keep the services up, but keep, and we want to do it. We really do. So that's why it would be nice if we had more businesses, because you get more sales tax. Melody, do we collect more sales tax than we do property tax?
Yes.
So sales tax is what really we need for this town, y'all. To keep the businesses going, guess what you gotta have?
People.
You gotta have people, you gotta have rooftops, you gotta have, foot traffic. I mean, this is just the way it is. Well, I mean, I don't know any other way, but, in the 20 years I've been here, I don't know any other way. But, okay, all right.
I can get with Melody and get you some options. We've been through this before, and I'll add one more layer of food for thought. That was the whole reason we pushed for impact fees.
Yeah.
To make it very
Yes,
clear
When, which I would have voted for, but we
Oh,
can't have
sure,
it.
I mean, I think that would have been unanimous vote, but,
Have they turned around on that yet?
no.
Somebody asked me about that this week, and I told them we could not do impact fees. That would be a perfect.
We have a private act charter.
Yeah.
We have to go to the state legislature to ask it to be changed ever. And when you're talking about budget, I will make this very clear, when you're talking about recurring expenses, that's one thing. What I think you're talking about, and I'll get with Melody to make sure we're using the right terminology, you're talking about a fund. That's a separate entity that's not really in the main budget, you make it separate. Now, the way I know that is other jurisdictions that have road, wastewater, park impact fees, they have to go to capital improvements. They cannot go to maintenance, and they are put in a separate fund for that reason. We don't have any impact fees. We went and asked, and our conservative legislature laughed at us and said, we're not going to take it to the committee, because they're very pro-builder right now. And that's okay. That's a position to have, and that's fine. But they wouldn't even take it up. So if you don't already have that power in your charter, I don't think, we could ask every year, and they're not going to take it up. If we could get a large group to go bang on them, we could maybe get it to the floor. It's not going to pass. But I know we talked about, Councilman Glover, the only way around that, and this is not a small project, I don't say this lightly, is to flip the script and go home rule. Say, we're not going to go to the legislature anymore. The public will vote on our charter amendments. Now, that has a lot of pros and a lot of cons. And if you want to hear about that, we can talk about that later. But that's how you could get impact fees going. Now, that wouldn't be tomorrow. You would have to put it to the public to vote to be a home rule charter at the next general election. It's required to be a general election. And then 2 years later, unless you want to pay for a special election, you would then change the charter for impact fees. So you're looking at 2.5 years would be the earliest, unless you want to pay for a special election. And again, home rule is not, that's a pretty big change in our government. Just in that one really small aspect, really. There's some other things that trickle off of it, but it's who gets to decide how your charter's changed ultimately. It starts with you, but are you asking permission of the state legislature or the citizens? And, again, there's pros and cons to that you get to make a policy decision on. But it all comes back to the budget in that we don't have any, we have the street aid fund.
Yeah.
We have the drug fund. Those are separate things that kind of, if it's not spent, it stays in its own little general fund, but everything else is in the main budget. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about, can we have these little pocket funds?
It would be beneficial, because just like she said, if you hire a police officer, for example, you gotta have a car, you gotta have equipment, you gotta have all that. If we had those funds, I have all that, so I could pay for the car and the blah, blah, blah.
Other than the recurring salary
Other than
expense
the
and all
recurring
that.
salary, which we could maybe budget for and afford, but all this other accessories,
is taken care of.
Is taken care of.
I would like to speak more, you would teach me later more on that home rule thing. This is the reason why, and there might be more to it that turns me off on it, but this is the reason why. I would rather them tell us this is our town. I would rather us decide our town than the state decide our town. Now, there might be some times that really turns my nose up at it. I'm not thinking, I'm ignorant.
There's a long list.
Okay. That's what I'm saying.
Well, something that popped in my mind is grants.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect us in future grants? I don't know. Yeah.
It's
There's
how.
not very many cities that,
No, the most.
East Ridge is under the home rule.
There's probably about, of the several municipalities in the state, there's maybe 50 that are home rule. The most prominent one's Metro National. They're home rule, they get to decide what their charter amendments are. When they went Metro, that was one of the things they adopted. And there's a few out there who just don't want to go to the state, they want it to stay local, and they've had problems with it too. Again, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, but it's where do you want to be asking?
But I'd like to have the education, have a conversation.
We can certainly educate you on that.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there any way that you can?
I can talk to you after the meeting, sorry, this is a government meeting right now. Public comments are over. So I guess is that added to the agenda next week?
Yes, please. Yes.
In what way, how are you wanting to add it?
I would like to know what our options are as far as funding things such as our parks and emergency services. You know, and in my viewpoint, then they should be required in every single budget every single year. So.
In addition to the line items we already have for you?
Yes, like I say.
I mean, we do have line items already.
We do. You know, whatever he asks for every year, I would like to take a percentage of that amount of money and it be required to be put in this fund for emergency services every single year. So, because what's going to happen is one of two things. We're either going to find a way to budget it, or we're not going to make budget, which means we'll find a way to budget it. And that's what I'm saying. So.
Might not be a popular way, but it's got to be a way. Because if you're going to let something go or something here or add some revenue,
I feel adamantly that that this is important enough to do just that. Either we let something go or we find a way to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, you know, I know this is a sore subject and I don't want to upset anybody because I'm not saying do away with trash service, but I don't know how you justify something like picking up garbage when you don't have enough staff to handle what's coming. And I know they say they can make it and they can't, but just like my example, if he's over rolling around the yard with somebody or a domestic and he's by himself and somebody's at my house kicking in my door, he's not coming. There's no help for me. You know, I'm
and how many people, I have to ask this, how many people do you hire to make sure that if 5 things happen at once, all 5 are taken care of? How many people do you hire?
This is what I'll say to that.
Full time, I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. You know, in my opinion,
we need more, I agree with that completely.
If that scenario that I just listed, which I think is a very plausible scenario, because you're only talking about 2 incidences happening in a city our size at once. If we can't handle that, then we're not doing our job. That's what I think. And that includes me. You know, if I can't make this happen before I get out of here, I haven't done my job, because when that happens, and it will, I don't want to be responsible. And, you know, because.
To jump on the back of that, I mean, I personally would never like the idea of an officer being by himself.
I don't
If he
either.
needs help. Now, I know this conversation's turned into a whole lot now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think these are the hard conversations we need to have now before we're up against a deadline to pass budget, I think.
Right, I agree with that too. I mean, you can't just wait till that day and then come in here and try to explain.
And that's what's going to happen if we don't.
You got to think about this.
Yes, and you're right. If we wait till budget time, it's too late.
Yep.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What happens when we have something that goes on? Do you call the county? How do you handle that?
Well, if it's an emergency, the county will back us up and they'll take the call.
Yeah.
If it's not, if it's a crash, if we got 2 crashes at once, they'll just stack them and we'll get to it when we can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unusual for an officer to have, 3 calls waiting. Now, mind you, like I said, they'll be minor, it'll be something that, doesn't, I shouldn't say matter a hill of beans, but it's not a serious call, but, we just have to stack them until we can get there. And you hit it on the head. To me, it's more about officer safety. This day and time, I mean, every day we're having officers either getting in shootings or being shot. It's not safe to have one officer out there working at a time. Now, I mean, I know we're a small town, but we have the same crime here that any city does. We just don't have the same amount.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Our calls have, when I started in 2009, we were averaging about 1,500 calls a year. I just did the figures, we're over 3,300 already for this year.
Yeah.
And I do want to bounce on that. The officer that got killed there in the county recently, if he'd have had another officer with him, he wouldn't be dead right now. and I believe that 100%. So, with what you said, you know, not only is that's my concern, but, you know, if they're out there by themselves, you know, we're not exempt. And that's the thing, like, we've got to find the money. I don't know where it's going to come from.
We know, and I will tell you that we know. I mean, we talk with Chris, but we know it. I'd love this year to have had 2 more officers.
Right.
But I think it came up, and when you think about what all that goes with them, and that's another stockpile of money, I mean.
And that's where we are.
That's where we are. It's not that we don't know that we need, we do know.
I think everybody's in agreement that we need it.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody's gonna disagree. The question is, let's have the hard conversations to figure out the right path forward to get it. And I just like to have those conversations now before we're up against the deadline.
Well, Mayor, what we can do is we can do some research, and we'll just make it a discussion item for the agenda. I don't think there's going to be a vote from it per se. I mean, if there is, but we can just, it'll be an educational discussion item, so that way you can come back next month and we can
do it again.
Go on to the next
Well, and this is a great discussion.
It is, yeah.
Because, and let me pitch this in. Things always happen that we did not budget for. That's what a budget is. Things are going to happen that year that you had no. We did budget. I think there's 10,000 in the parks budget. So we will have to hope that sales tax goes, just a hope that, you know, revenue goes above or something. We'll know by the end of May or something what we've got to do, amend the budget or something. So we do have maintenance budget in there, but we had no idea. I had no idea that was coming. I didn't.
And that's what fund balance is for.
Yes, you can, that's a safety issue, those things like that, that's
Stuff
not,
like that,
that's not daily
Fund balance is
operating.
great for stuff like that.
Exactly.
And I'd just like to say, none of this is an indictment on Ms. Melody. You do an amazing job. I'm just saying, I think what we're just saying is just saying, hey, can we look at other strategies to employ as well? And all that.
Yeah, sure.
So, because you do a phenomenal job, so none of that should be just taken as criticism there.
I take it this wasn't discussion.
No, this is supposed to be for the next one, but it's just such a in-depth topic, but.
We almost had a short meeting, but we figured to pop the can of worms.
Okay, well, hey, that's a lot of time, I mean, we really need to talk about this a lot in work sessions.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and then when we get ready to do action, that's, we should do, but in work session, and anytime you want to talk about it, anytime, but, yeah, okay. Do we have any more new business? Everybody is ready to go home? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Do I need a roll call or do
I'll say, well.
Meeting adjourned.